So once again, I'd like to welcome you at our first Launchmetrics Solutions event, a series of live demos of Launchmetrics products. Today, we'll be talking about the effective management of samples and exploring our samples tool. So my name is Alex. I'm the business marketing executive here at Launchmetrics. And with me today, I have Trent, who is the key account director and an absolute samples pro. He'll talk you and walk you through the platform, its use cases. So say hello to Trent.
Hello, everybody.
Really good to have you here. Okay, let's quickly go through the agenda so we know what's coming up. We'll start by a very brief introduction to Launchmetrics for those of you who are here with us for the first time. Then we'll move to the key challenges faced by professionals in the industry. And I would like to thank everyone who filled out the survey. We got some really good answers of your daily struggles that I'll share in a couple of minutes. And feel free to submit your answers in the survey. That should pop up somewhere in the chat right now. Yes, great. I see it's here. Then Trent will walk you through the platform and also feel free to pop any questions you have. We'll try to address them as we go. But then finally, we'll have some time for questions in the end. So if you're not, all will be answered. All right, let's get into it. For those of us who don't know us, Launchmetrics is the leading brand performance cloud for fashion, luxury, and beauty. Launchmetrics is twofold, really. On one side, we help brands be more efficient and digitize their processes and optimize resources that they already have. We work with over 1,000 clients, some of which I'm very happy to see here today. And then on the other side, it's tracking the client's activities, their marketing activities, strategies, and leveraging data and insights so they can better understand the performance of what they're doing. But today we'll be focusing on the launch side of things. So for these two sides, or tools and data help executives make smarter decisions around their branding efforts, and of course for that, propel their brand performance. Since samples is the first step in launching a collection, we're kicking off with that tool today, a core to anyone really in the fashion, luxury, and beauty industry. Okay, let's talk about the key challenges faced by professionals in the industry. As we know, samples are key assets to any brand. They're the first asset you're working with for your e-commerce, your launch event, something you'll be sending to publication and influencers on a daily basis. And the first and most common issue is loss and overproduction of samples, the latter very often coming from the former. Samples get moved around, they get moved around between departments, countries, they are shared externally. So it's super important to keep a close track of them. And the challenge that professionals often face is that manual tracking of samples. And although we're past the big physical folders era, hopefully, though I must admit I've seen some last year still, a lot of brands are still tracking samples in Excel. And that process is very manual and not very precise. So losing samples means losing money, opportunities, and a negative environmental impact. And it hits you twice, because once a sample is lost, you're facing that cost of the sample that you just lost, but also the double cost of reordering that sample, increasing your cost and environmental impact. So then we'll have the miscommunication between departments. As I mentioned, samples travel from different departments, from merchandise to e-commerce, to wholesale, archive, PR showroom, you name it. There's so many steps on the way. So it's very important to know where that sample is at every stage, where to look for it. And although you can in a PR showroom, you can wing kind of asking your colleague within that same showroom about the location of the sample. When we're talking about big companies and multiple departments and thousands, if not millions of samples, that communication between departments is really crucial. And then lastly, and as a result of the first two issues, we'll have the missed opportunities and deadlines. Not being able to locate a sample will result in delayed launches of products since they can't reach the photo studio on time, and ultimately will affect sales. We'll also be facing missed PR opportunities. We have publications reaching out, stylists reaching out, requesting samples, and not for today or tomorrow, as we know it's always for yesterday. So not being able to locate sample immediately will cause delays and for these opportunities to be missed. That means the product won't end up in a publication, it won't end up being worn by a celebrity or an influencer at a big event. And that means missed PR coverage for a client or for our own brand, and ultimately loss in revenue. Okay, so now that we went through the most common issues, which we're probably facing on a daily basis, let's see how we can tackle all these and some other issues with the samples platforms. Again, feel free to pop any questions you have in the chat, and I'll try and interrupt Trent a bit while he talks and see if we can address some in the meantime. Well, Trent, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. So I think the big thing, if I were to start off, I think to take away from this is I've been doing this for about 10 years and working with brands under the fashion, luxury, beauty umbrella for quite a while. And it's everything from luxury to mass market, to jewelry, to footwear, athleisure, home goods. It really all falls down to the same problems that they're all having. While this is not like the most flashy of the products that we have, I get it. It's very logistics heavy. It causes so many issues within the brand that it almost becomes like that closet in your house that you're not wanting to clean, and you keep putting it off and keep putting it off, and you don't even want to open it. But at the end of the day, by not dealing with that, it's costing the company a lot of money. We've looked at this. We'll get to this later, but analysis with the brands to show the financial gaps caused by not using a solution. On top of that, it's also creating a lot of miscommunication and frustrations with each of the different teams that Alex was just mentioning. So one thing I do want to point out is while our software, of course, is a huge, big help to what we do, it's also our experience with just very niche problem. That's a very big problem at the brand level that you can really rely on our expertise and what we bring to the table to help make the workflow and the process of samples a lot better outside of just our solution. So I think that's something really important to keep in mind. All right, so I'm going to jump into the product. So the idea of this is just to show you kind of high level what the product looks like, how we kind of address these pain points that Alex just covered. And then from there, we'll set you up with some different meetings that we really want to dive in to your brand's process specifically in meetings after this to understand like what are your exact pain points, how you can improve your process, and do like even a more lengthy demo to tailor to your needs specifically. So one thing that you come into the system, one thing I want to start off with. So the idea is once samples are placed and you know what's actually going to be produced, what we have here is right from the beginning, we have all of your samples that come into this holding area internally. So what's great about it, so like right from the beginning, your design and merch team decide what samples are going in there. The samples will upload here while they're actually being produced at your different manufacturers globally. What's great about the system is right from the beginning, it's very flexible. Ideally, the best way is to have an integration with one of your current systems that houses the most samples data. And we're very flexible, agnostic. It doesn't matter what kind of system it is. We can pull in this information automatically. If you don't have that option, we can also do this en masse for each collection through an Excel template as well. But the great part is once samples start arriving, we know that this can be a pain point for a lot of brands right from the beginning of trying to understand what's arrived, what hasn't, what manufacturers still haven't sent what. So you can use these filters up above, and you'll see these filters throughout the whole system, to be able to look for just specific samples. You can look by type, by collection, by season. What's nice about this part is you can also look by manufacturer. So if I have 20 different manufacturers globally that I'm working with, as each like box arrives and each shipment arrives, I can sort by the manufacturer and easily check the samples in. One thing we'll get into later as well is our system does provide a barcode that you can use. It's a unique ID, so you can track duplicates, which makes it a lot easier for that. So you have a 1-to-1 ratio of knowing where each sample is. Another great part is that if you already have barcodes on your samples, We can also work with those barcodes as well and pull those in from another system. And then even better, and we'll get to this later, we can work with RFID technology as well, which also like makes the efficiency way better. And again, we'll talk about that in a minute. So right from the beginning, anything that let's say I'm in charge of check-in, all these samples I'm checking in, as I'm scanning them in, it will move these samples from this holding area into your live inventory automatically. At this stage, if you're going to use our barcodes, that's where the barcodes are created. And what's great about this is, let's say you think you've received all your samples. You can come into this imported area, again, this holding area, and anything that's left in here, I can see, okay, we didn't receive this yet. It eliminates all that back and forth, all that cross-referencing that you're having to do of what you're supposed to receive versus what you've already received. And from here, what's really great about it is you can come down and you can quickly print this to a PDF. You can actually send an email right to your vendors directly and saying, hey, we're still waiting on these samples. Can you please send, give us an update, et cetera. So and then anybody from a visibility standpoint, you don't have to have these endless emails trying to figure out where samples are located at any given time. They can see, oh, it just hasn't arrived yet. So with that being said, once you're done with the check-in process, then like I said, it moves everything into your live inventory. So the way that looks here is, again, back to a visibility standpoint. This is a key part of like dealing with the miscommunication among teams. Rather than sending these emails saying, where's this, where's that, I can log into the system and see, okay, using these search filters again. And one of the things that's great, if all of this filters that you need, we can use as many fields as you want based on what you have in your other systems. And you can make this as simple as you want. It's really up to you. And when you're pulling these out, again, one of the things you can pull in images, super helpful when you're trying to figure out samples. And I can see at any given time, okay, where is every sample within my live inventory? So with that, I can click on these links. I can see this sample went out to this stylist. This is the data was expected back. I can follow up through email to find out where the sample is. So it, again, keeps everything really in line and on track. So the main thing I want to focus on is what you're going to be mostly using this for, which is your sendouts and returning samples back in. So when you're going to do a sendout, it's pretty straightforward. One of the great things is we do work with almost every department within a brand. As you know, most departments all touch samples, even if they have different use cases for those samples. So you can have different users associated with different departments within your brand. So when you log on, these first few fields are automatically going to default. Really, all you need to put in is when you're expecting that sample back. So let's say I have this coming out for an end of May and who the sample's going to. So I can start typing in, put our good old Alice and Levy. And then from here, everything else is defaulted. Now, it's up to you. If you want to put in more information to make your reporting better, you can definitely do that. Like from a PR standpoint, you can put all this information in, as you see here. You can put in the method of dispatch. We'll find out what it is that is the most used by you, how you send samples, and then we'll make that your default. We are able to also connect with an address label printer that you can have your personalized logo, quickly print out the address label once you're done with the delivery and put it on the garment bag or the box and send it on its way. But outside of that, everything else is straightforward. We are a global company. Alex, I think, mentioned at the beginning, we're in all the major fashion markets within US and Europe, also in Asia. So we also realize that there's a need for localization. So you can put in the different currency that's needed. And so this is just for the loan type. Before I move on past this is also really important for like putting where samples end up at the end of life. So I want to stop here for just a second. So the loan may be what you're using the most because that's when you're expecting the sample back from your team. But these other instances are really important as well. So one is transfers. So internally, maybe I am in merchandising. I'm in charge of unpacking the samples, but then I'm going to distribute this to the photo studio and I'm just going to transfer this to them. They take ownership. I don't ever need it back. So the transfers are really important for internal reasons. Reservations are key. So one of the things that people don't realize, we know that not everything's working in real time. So reservations are really important because this is a planning resource across the board. And this is what allows teams to share samples effectively between them. So the reservation feature allows you to put something on hold. So let's say I know I have a photo shoot coming up. I have my shot list. I'm on the e-com team. I'm going to go ahead and reserve all the samples I need from 2 weeks from now. So that way, if someone comes into the showroom or comes into the e-com studio, they see a sample. When they go to actually check the sample out, it's going to flag it and say, nope, actually you can't use this, even though it's here physically, because it's going as a part of this photo studio. What's great about this is this allows that person to then say, okay, well, I really need it for a shoot for Vogue. They're asking for this exact dress. And now you can have this conversation to get it from another team. You can maybe pull it from another source or have that conversation with the photo studio. Maybe you can get it back in time before they need to do the photo shoot. This is super important because this allows brands to share samples effectively. It also points back to that overproduction. A lot of teams are just ordering samples, and spending a ton of money doing that. But in reality, if they're sharing them effectively and using the system, so you can go from maybe creating 10 sample sets down to like 2. And we've seen this happen. And this is one of the KPIs when you sign on that we'll look to work on with you as you continue moving forward with using our solution. So you can see the financial benefits. Once things are marked as sample sale, you can quickly upload all the, check out all the samples that are going to sample sale. If things come from the vendors and they're not correct, and we all know this happens sometimes, you can mark them as such. So you have that from a reporting standpoint. If you want to archive anything, you can move them to a separate area of archive. Things that get lost and damaged along the way, of course, everyone knows you send things out, they come back with a hole, they come back with things scraped up, ruined, etc. From a finance standpoint, you can pull a quick report to show all your write-offs, and this will really help for tax purposes from an audit standpoint. On top of that, gifting's huge right now, not only PR, but influencers, being able to mark all your products as gift and have the reporting on the back end of that too. So want to make sure this is clear because you'll be using this send out feature for a lot of things outside of loan. So to really track things to the end of the life cycle. All right, so to wrap this up, really, this is super simple. You mainly just need to put in when you're expecting it back and who it's going to. And this will pull from a list of contacts that you previously upload into the system. You can do this right when you onboard. You can also add to this as you continue growing with this and adding contacts to your own database. So from here, you just scan the samples out. So you can do this virtually if you want. We know a lot of people are working remote now, but you can also scan. So one of the things, we're not gonna have time to get to it today, you will mostly be doing all this on your mobile device. It's an iOS app that you can use for iPad or iPhone. So you can literally just do everything I just showed you, pull up your app, scan it through your barcodes, through your camera or the RFID tag. And then from there, you can complete your send out. So this is really, really important. This keeps you on the go, really easy to use. Very also easy if you want to teach everyone in your company. We have some people that have 200 people in their company using the system. This is very important that they can pick up the app and use it really easily and keep it moving. So I want to show you a couple of examples real quick here. If you see here, anything that's not marked on loan, this is how you can scan things. You can see things marked on loan. So I want to show you what happens when so let's say this is on a reservation I already sent out. This says could not be scanned successfully. So again, that's going back to that keeping a checks and balance of samples. It'll give you the reason why, and you'll see this was already on another delivery. Maybe someone just forgot to return it back in. That's okay. I can rescan it back in and add it to my cart. But maybe this is on that reservation and you shouldn't take it, and it keeps everyone on the same page, and you can have those conversations from there. From here, after you've built your shopping cart, you go to your next step, you're done. It's super easy, only takes a couple minutes to do when you're doing it in real time. And then from here, what it does is it creates a delivery memo that you can customize with your own logos up top. What's great about this is you can create your own templates, so you can choose. Maybe you want to pull the tracking number in. Some of our jewelry clients are high-end samples. They put some type of terms and conditions that need sign off before it goes out the door. This is up to you. You can PDF this, you can email it and send it right to the contact that's receiving them and saying, hey, This is your tracking number, it's on your way, etc. Reprint barcodes from here, etc. What else is nice about this? If you're sending samples internationally, which a lot of our clients do, there's a performa invoice here as well that you can also customize, just like the delivery memo. If you do have that address label printer, you can print it from here. So I know we have a few minutes, so I just want to make sure I catch up to the returns, but that's how quickly the send out process is. You're good to go. Those delivery memos are always to go back to when you need it as a reference. For returns, super easy. You literally just scan the barcode back in. Again, you're almost always going to be using your app to do this. You scan it from your camera, boom, 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 scan it back into your team if you're taking a transfer from another team or pulling it back in externally. What's also great is you can manage your overdue samples really easily. You can look by delivery or whole samples. And I can come in here and again, search by maybe the contact that had it. I can search by the company, by the sample itself. And then from here, I can look and see, like maybe you need to edit the delivery because they're going to keep it a little bit longer. No big deal. Just make sure to keep your system clean. But you can also raise a reminder right from the system. I can say like, hey, you'll go to that return contact as Cosmo, for instance. I really need this sample back. Can you please send it? I'm waiting on these, etc. And that will go from the email account that's connected to your username. So we'll go through your email inbox without having to leave the system. All right, so lastly, so I want to make sure we have time for Q&A. There's other features in here, for instance, like being able to do like audits to make sure everything in your showroom that the system says you have is supposed to be there. There's other features. Again, I encourage you to reach back out to us so we can set you up with a more specific demo, that we can cover exactly what you want to see and see some of these features in more details. But I don't want to leave this part out because reporting is super important. One thing, back to that overproduction part, you can go through and you can filter these out by different dates. So if you want to see over a certain collection, department, you can look by season, etc. Filter those down, and then you can go through and see like, okay, what were my most sent samples, most used samples? I think that's super important. You can download these reports, but also let's say you had of these, obviously this is probably not realistic, but 506 samples were created. You can see here right away, 501 samples were not used. So that for us, that's overproduction. Why aren't you using them? How could you share these more effectively? From an environmental standpoint, it's not sustainable. Obviously, it's a hot topic right now and very important. On top of that, it's a ton of money wasted. As everyone knows, samples are usually quite costly to produce. The last thing with reporting, and again, there's so much you can pull, but I want to pull out real quick, is if you are at the end of a season, you want to see like, again, we kind of talked about this, that everything that got sold in a sample sale, you want to pull out. All your write-offs, again, for tax purposes, and you can date range when those were pulled. So if you want to see everything for the year, everything that was in archive, etc., you can really quickly generate those reports and see everything and then get those totals based on the information you're keeping in the system. All right, I know I flew through this, but I hope this was enough information to pique your interest to get that next demo. So from here, I just want to jump right back in before we get to the Q&A. So if we're going to leave you with like a few things, I just want to leave you with going back to what Alex talked about. Sample loss is huge for a lot of brands, and maybe that might not be as important for like some mass market brands where the sample isn't as costly as luxury. But from that standpoint, a lot of our mass market brands, and I know this from my own experience, are overproducing samples by a lot, and usually by several sample sets. And at mass market brands, they're getting one of every color, and that can, of course, add up. I think, again, digitizing the operations. So making sure this is an efficiency standpoint, like you're not going back and forth when you're looking for check-ins and what's arrived from the vendors, et cetera. Making sure that launch process, that accelerating that time to market, making sure this is a process from the beginning of the sample creation to the end of its life cycle is streamlined throughout, whether that's the photo studio design for merch meetings, sales ops, opportunities, or PR coverage, that you're covered from beginning to end, and then maximizing the resources so you're not overproducing and using the most out of your samples as you should be. One thing we kind of highlighted here that I want to make sure I touched on, RFID tracking is really big. This is something we're seeing a lot of clients turn to now. From a couple different ways why this helps. if you for efficiency standpoint, you can set up antennas. We partner with some brand with a company called Tamara that specializes in this, and they work with a lot of fashion luxury brands and mass market brands already. But it allows you to move samples seamlessly from one studio bay to another or to another room, and it will already track the sample's movement and location. It's also great if you are a mass market brand or even luxury, and you've got like 100 samples you're moving from one department to the next. You scan the samples through the app with one RFID gun. It picks that all up without having to scan each one by one. Super efficient. And then if you're targeting looking for a sample, you're in a warehouse, for instance, you can put in the sample information, look for that sample, and it'll act like a metal detector, and it will help you find that sample exactly, so you know exactly where every sample is. So we have 4 minutes. I did that as quickly as possible. I'm usually long-winded, so I hope you got enough out of that. So yeah, any time for Q&A before we log off here.
Great. Thanks so much, Trent. That was super good, super quick, precise. And thanks for sharing the RFID tracking. I mean, I think that's my favorite feature, and I wish I had that when I worked in a.
It is very cool. You definitely see eyes like do this when they see it.
I know, you can just put it
cool.
in one place and then it checks in, bam, like you don't waste, a couple of hours. Amazing. So amazing. We had some questions sent while you were presenting. So someone asked, our samples already come with barcodes. Is your system compatible with other barcodes?
Yes. So the samples compatible. We can create your own barcodes, but the samples can also we can use your barcodes as well. The one caveat I would say to that is a lot of barcodes that come on samples are typically not a unique ID. So if you care about tracking duplicates, then it does help to use our barcodes. But that's something that you can discuss in more detail with your account directors in your local market.
Great. And then we had a question. What are the different ways you can check samples in? I think you covered that mostly with the barcodes, the RFID.
Yeah, correct. Barcodes, RFID, the system, again, super flexible to meet depending on the technology you have in place.
Okay. Another question we have is there a function that sends an alert to the user or client when the return date are expiring?
That's a great question. And yes, so you can set up notifications for overdue samples that hit your inbox. It's up to you how often you want those sent. What else is nice, and we didn't cover this because we didn't have a lot of time, but when you log onto the system, it pulls up a samples dashboard that acts as your to-do for the day as well. What that will do is it'll show you reservations that need to be processed and sent out for the day, but it'll also show you overdue samples and samples that will be that should be returned that day. So keeps you as a virtual to-do list and keep everything really organized every time you log in.
Amazing. Okay, we have 1 minute. So one more question. You mentioned the most sent samples. So will it show me the most popular samples? So which samples are performing best?
Yes, and that report I showed you, the sample performance report, again, you can drill it down to the collection or the date or the season, but you'll be able to see really quickly in 2 seconds exactly your most popular looks. And of course, this is very popular for PR, very used, and it can be used across other departments as well.
Okay, amazing. I think these are all the questions. We made it into 30 minutes. I'm very impressed. I hope everyone found the answers they were looking for. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to Trent or myself, book a one-to-one demo. We are here to answer any questions. The recording will be available immediately after, and we have some upcoming sessions on other products, so keep an eye out if you're interested in other solutions like events management, brand monitoring, or competitor benchmark. So thank you again. Thanks, Trent, for your time and for showing us the samples platform. Have a lovely day, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.